What is happening, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Rip the Net, bringing you sports and culture. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Eric.
I'm Dre.
I'm Alexi.
And how is this week treating y'all?
I'm Gas. We'll get into it a little later on the pod, but the top five race in the Prem heating up. Chelsea with a big win over the weekend, which we'll dive a little more into. At least I will. But I'm excited for the end of the season. I still am not sure we're actually going to get top five, but we put ourselves in a good position anyway by beating the champion. So we'll take that.
Okay. Word. I mean, I will say too, NBA playoffs have been a treat to watch. First round is officially over, so we'll be just covering some of our thoughts on that. But yeah, it's a lot to get into this week. But first topic that we want to dive into.
Actually, yeah. No, you're good. I just wanted to dog on United for a second, but
oh man, we don't need that. We don't need that.
But I was like, I'll spare Alexi. I know he has a cough and all that, so we'll get to that. Maybe.
Yeah, man, my week was already cooked, bro. Like United on top of that, I like to forget about that. We're focusing on the Europa League. Prem doesn't matter. It's not gonna matter for another 2 years. Let's focus on the tourneys.
Fair enough. But yes, the first quick topic. This isn't anything major, but I can't remember where I saw this. I think I was just watching TV, and this commercial came on, which was a LeBron James commercial with Royal Kingdom, which, from what I understand, is like just some mobile game, so maybe like a Clash of Clans clone or something. I don't know. No disrespect, Royal Kingdom. If you want to sponsor us, go ahead. But I never played it in my life. I'm not gonna lie, but LeBron's getting his bag, a Royal Kingdom
exactly
commercial.
How you don't get a sponsorship.
Yeah, I just keep it in a stack. I ain't gonna lie to the viewers and say I'm playing Royal Kingdom on the regular. I've never heard of this game in my life. But if you pay us, I will start playing it. That's all that matters. But basically, in this commercial, and I think there's actually a series of commercials, but the one that I saw was this one centered around LeBron reading books. And basically in the commercial, the entire premise is that LeBron's not actually reading these books that he walks around with. He's actually playing Royal Kingdom inside the book. Like, he cut out the pages of the book and has his phone in there, and he's playing Royal Kingdom. The whole thing, it's whatever about the commercial. Good job, Royal Kingdom. But basically, I just wanted to comment on this because we had talked in the past about I think the episode you were out, Alexi, but we were talking about LeBron being quite corny, and the whole saga of LeBron being a known capper for no reason. And a big one is LeBron, him saying he's reading these books or just knowing things in general. But one of them was he used to reading like the biography of Malcolm X, and dude looked like he was on the first page. And you were asking, like, what do you like about the book? And I just thought this was a funny, self-aware commercial that played into LeBron being a cap star, and I actually appreciated that from him. So I don't know if you guys had time to check this out.
Yeah, and by the way, just on that Malcolm X little, I guess, clip or that like interview question, what cracks me up is that they're like, what have you learned about, or like, what has this book taught you? Very smart man. And then he's like, whatever was going down in the 60s is what's going down today. Like, for whatever reason, just, I don't know, was just trying to say something. Yeah, on the actual commercial. I can always appreciate when a person of his status can poke fun at themselves. I wonder if this is him actually admitting the fact that he does not read the books. And it's also cool to see because it's like LeBron's actually been confronted about this in the past. Like, I don't know if y'all seen, but like on his show, The Shop, somebody confronted him about the capping, and he kind of like, you could tell that he found it funny as well. So always good to see somebody poking fun at themselves.
Exactly, and this is exactly why LeBron is less corny than Jason Tatum. But I won't get back into that whole spiel because you know how I feel about Jason Tatum. But I don't know if you had time to. I know. Now you're not feeling the best if you saw this, Alexi, or not.
Oh yeah, I did. I think it's funny. I always appreciate when celebrities are, they show they're aware of what's funny about them and what they get memed on the internet about. So I thought it was a clever ad, good ad. Usually I hate, I don't play mobile games. I don't know anyone who plays mobile games. I don't know how they got the money to get LeBron for an ad, but hey, I respect the agency behind that.
For sure. Now those mobile games, honestly, be raking in cash. Like,
Bro, they got to be fronts or something.
I don't know what the demographic is. Maybe it's kids, or I don't know. I know it's like big in Asia, especially, but like it's crazy. These mobile games make a lot more than it's like a lot of AAA games, which is crazy. But they're just raking the cash, and then some of them are able to start AAA studios off of that mobile game cash, which is crazy.
Damn, bro. Maybe I got to get on that. Make a AI created mobile game. Retire early.
Puzzle games, man. Like people love them, like puzzle games, or even like Raid Shadow Legends, Raid Shadow Legends. Sponsor us as well. They've been sponsoring YouTubers for like a decade, constantly, and they have to have a bag to be constantly sponsoring YouTubers. So clearly, they're making some kind of money.
Insane.
Yeah, I love Raid. So check us out.
Yeah.
If there is a mobile game that I would want to sponsor us, I think the only one that would be fitting would be, I don't even know what it's called anymore, if it's around anymore. Dre probably knows better, but Dre especially, and I did at one point too, used to always play Dream League in high school. Like, that was the one game I would catch him consistently playing. I don't know if you still play it, Dre, but if I could pick one mobile game to sponsor us, I feel like that would have to be the most appropriate one.
Nah, I forgot about that, honestly. But thanks for reminding me, because I had to go see what's going on in the App Store. Oh, Dream League Soccer 2025. Okay, so they're still going. And they got Julian Alvarez and Rodrigo on the cover. Hold up, they got a little. Okay,
they got a bag. Clearly,
they got a bag.
I was gonna say, bro, I've been playing. This is pretty popular, I think, on PC, maybe on console. But if you've ever heard of Balatro, it's a indie card game that I saw was on like the App Store the other day, and I have like a trial of like Apple Arcade, so I started the game, and I never thought I'd be hooked on like a mobile game, but they got me, bro. They got me.
That game,
so, Balatro, if you need sponsors, man, hey,
I'm sure they're doing well. Weren't they like Game of the Year contender or something? It's crazy.
Yeah, so they probably don't need sponsors, but point still stands.
We'll take it. But that Balatro game, from all I've heard, is that's just straight up addiction. So I've been staying away from it. But I can respect that a game like that popped off. Even this is becoming a whole gaming segment.
Yeah, it's refreshing to play like a game like that too. Like someone like me playing shooters all the time, to lay down the weapon and just play with some cards. It can be a little peaceful,
Yes, sir. You know what was not peaceful? The first round of the NBA playoffs. I know you want to hop into that, Eric.
Yes, the first round of the playoffs are officially over, and honestly, I will say this is an entertaining round. I think typically, in my experience, I feel like first round matchups are very predictable, and there were a few series that were very one-sided, but we definitely got treated to two classics, I would say, in my opinion, at least, along with other like very close series. So we're just gonna go through. We'll go through each series. I will say we won't have a lot to comment on some of them, just especially like the one-sided ones, but we want to get into just our reactions to the first round as well as our predictions for the second round. So, all right. So to start with, Thunder Grizzlies, and I believe we did record our predictions on that episode where Alexi was absent. So just a little footnote in there, but I had the Thunder going over. Dre, you had the Grizzlies going over. Thunder swept the Grizzlies. It was not even close. Ja dealt with some injuries and it's not close at all. But yeah, any comments?
Not much here. Honestly, I was just trying to switch it up. I was hoping for, Ja to maybe have a all-time performance. Didn't happen. Yeah, not much happened eventful here. And some of the games, I guess, were interesting. There was some I guess, blowouts and historical blowouts and some comebacks and stuff like that. But overall, what was supposed to happen happened, and the Thunder moving on. Shea just overfarming, whatever.
That's crazy. Yeah, not sure what this means for Ja Morant's future. No, we discussed that a little bit, but we'll see what the offseason holds. Next series, Nuggets and Clippers, man. Went to 7 games and the Nuggets advanced. Any reactions? Any thoughts? I just want to give you the floor.
Here's the thing. Going into this series, when we actually did our predictions, you predicted the Clippers to win. I predicted Nuggets in 7, I believe. And my thing was, I was hoping, obviously, the Clippers would win. But I thought if I predict against them, I will not be jinxing them. And either way, either I get what I wanted or I get the prediction right. And, I got the prediction right. We'll take those. But the thing is with the Clippers is you can never get your hopes up. Like, at least for me as a Clippers fan, I never get my hopes up. I've learned my lesson year after year after year. And even seeing how we were playing in the series, I was like, just for like little seconds here and there, I was like, Kawhi is actually, anytime Kawhi is fit, you could still see realistically he's one of the best players in the league, two-way especially. And I seen that Kawhi's putting it together, healthy, Harden's doing his thing, Powell doing his thing, Zubac is doing his thing. I was like, okay, we might have a little something here. And we were just going back and forth. And it was a great series, honestly. Like, the Clippers Nuggets is a sneak. People talk about Lakers Nuggets, but Clippers Nuggets have had some good matchups over the years as well. But they usually get the best of us. So, as always, they did it as well. But going into Game 7, I just knew. Like, I honestly just knew. The reason why I predicted Nuggets in 7 is we don't have the Game 7 in us. Like, Kawhi does in general. But James Harden, no matter how many years pass, there's something to be said for someone who doesn't show up in that moment. And I hate to dog on him because I like James Harden as a player, and it was cool having him being able to follow the league while he was an active player, and especially when he was on his scoring tirade with the Rockets, because I feel like that's something you don't really get to see. Like, I didn't really grow up on like that era of Kobe. Like, I saw like late 2000s Kobe, who was still obviously one of the best players in the league, but like it wasn't like 81 Kobe, or like obviously I didn't grow up on Jordan. So it was cool seeing a player who was constantly putting up like those kind of numbers. But his history of not showing up is just continuing to show itself, and there's a reason why he's going to retire without a ring. It just is what it is. He's not going to get it. I don't ever see it happening. And if he retires with the Clippers, that means the Clippers are not winning a ring. But until he retires, at least, because this guy just doesn't show up when we need him to. And I'm tired of getting baited by him. So the prediction played out exactly as I thought it would.
In James Harden's case, it's so tough because he has had such a legendary career. Recently, I was watching highlights from that 2018 series between the Rockets and the Warriors, and this was the KD Warriors, so they were loaded. And this man has gotten so close so many times. He made it to the finals when he was on the Thunder back in the day against LeBron, and so it's just tough to see somebody not be able to shake the narrative, and he's had an illustrious career, but he just looks like he won't get that ring, so it does hurt to see. But the series itself was definitely a treat to watch. There was that one game where it really came down to the wire, and so Aaron Gordon shot like this, I think it was off a Jokic miss, and he ended up catching it and just dunking it in. Oh, it looks like it was game 4. Yeah. So pretty early on in the series, and at that point, the Clippers were up 2-1, and so if the Clippers won that, they would have been up 3-1. Like if Aaron Gordon does not catch Jokic's miss, Clippers are up 3-1 and likely take the whole series. It's just crazy to see how small the margin can really be, but it does frustrate me for the Clippers. I do want to see Harden and Kawhi do well. They are some of my favorite players, so that is a little tough to watch. But moving on to the Lakers and the Wolves, and I actually had the Lakers taking this, and I believe you had the Wolves going over, and lo and behold, Wolves won it in 5 games. The whole Lakers in 5, man. It ended up being Wolves in 5, and as we saw, Anthony Edwards had his little victory lap around Crypto.com Arena. Has been really talking the talk on social media, all over the press, and so he's just really been feeling himself. So, any thoughts or comments on that series?
Yeah, I mean, this one pretty much played out how I thought it would. I don't know if I said 5 games exactly, but I think, or maybe I did, because we kind of did that whole, tried to come up with the whole Wolves scheme for the in 5 thing. But the thing is with the Lakers is that they were never built to win a ring this year. And I think because they had such a good end to the season, people started to dream, like, I think just because the Lakers, people love the narrative. They're like, they just start to dream like, ooh, Reeves is putting it together. Luka getting back to game fitness, although, we can talk about that, but still for his level, it's still whatever. It's still good enough. And LeBron came back from his injury. These 3 cooking together, it's something. But once the trade happened, when we talked about the trade back in whenever it was, January, we said on that podcast that no matter, you can have LeBron and Luka, and that's an amazing duo, but the team construction isn't there. Like, the big man isn't there, and they tried to go and get the guy out of Charlotte. I forget his name. When they tried to trade Connect for him, and then that one fell through. Mark Williams, yeah, thank you. And that one fell through, and as soon as that fell through, to me the season was over. No matter how well they ended up going to become the 3 seed, I believe, which was impressive, but that's regular season basketball. Playoffs is a completely different animal, and especially getting the Wolves as a matchup with Rudy Gobert, it was never in the cards for me for them to win it. It's a shame. I think Reeves, he kind of didn't show up in the way I think people thought he might as like a third option in this series. LeBron, did what he does. Luka did what he does, but Ant really showed himself as, that guy. I said before the series I was a little disappointed that Ant was becoming more of a, like, falling in love with the 3 type player versus attacking the rim. But we still got to see that both elements of that game is there. And I think especially going against a small ball Lakers team, him attacking the rim is what I really wanted to see. And I was glad to see that he still had that element of his game, that he isn't too obsessed with the 3. But yeah, I'm curious to see where this goes going into next year, because the Lakers reconstructing the team, whether or not LeBron continues to play, which I'm sure he will. He loves to just build the narrative, or will I, won't I? But I'm sure he will. So I'm curious to see where it goes next year, especially with JJ as the coach, because I kind of feel bad for him. I feel like he kind of got stitched up with this trade. Not that it's a bad trade in terms of the future. If he goes on to be the Lakers coach for the next 10 years, then I'm sure he'll have a lot of success with Luka. But for this season and the narrative, people are by him first time coach. It's there's only so much you can really do with this tactical matchup. So yeah, I think it kind of played out how I thought it would, but you didn't get your dream Lakers Warriors match. Shame on you.
Yeah, man, and it's just tough to see, because I really did think the Lakers had enough offensive firepower to make it past the Wolves. I mean, you have LeBron, you have Luka, and it looks like LeBron actually took a bit of a step back. Like, it looks like he regressed just a little bit in this series, didn't show up quite how we are used to seeing him show up, and obviously that can be, like, his age can be pointed out,
Father Time.
or be the culprit. Yeah, Father Time is undefeated, and it just sucks because it was a little bit of a tough watch because the Wolves really did have their way. Next series that we have, it's and the Warriors, and this was the 2 seed versus the 7 seed, and it went to 7 games. Warriors ended up taking Game 7 convincingly, winning 103-89. And that was actually yesterday. So, also had a legendary performance from Buddy Hield, who actually was torching the Knicks in that Sixers-Knicks playoff series last year. And, we got to see Steph take down the young dogs, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson. Like those guys, they really did not seem. I thought they would give the Warriors a rough time, and it looks like they did, but clearly not enough to beat the very experienced Golden State Warriors. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we both predicted Warriors win here. I'm not sure we thought it'd go as far as 7. So fair play to the Rockets for even pushing such an experienced team that far. I think that shows a lot of promise for them. I think in the upcoming years, I never thought they would go super far this year, but to get a 7-game series in your first year really even being a top team, I think that's really important. I think that can put them maybe even ahead of schedule. Like, whereas I would have thought, okay, maybe in 2-3 years, they'll start to peak. Getting that experience now, I think is really important. And maybe even next year, we could see them start to see the fruits of that a little earlier than I thought. But in terms of just the Game 7, I don't want to hear nothing about no Steph Curry, greatest point guard of all time. Steph Curry is top 10. Steph Curry, whatever. I think even Shaq last week said Steph Curry's in the GOAT conversation. Nonsense, bro. I don't want to hear any of that. That's ridiculous. This dude had like 3 points in the first half of Game 7. And he was just getting garbage time points at the end. I honestly do not want to hear that. This it's so fraudulent. He literally got carried by Buddy Hield in the Game 7. He got carried by Iguodala years ago. He got carried by KD years ago. I don't want to hear that. So don't start building this Steph Curry narrative, because you think I'm hating on Tatum and you think I hate on Bron, y'all gonna see a real hater come out. And I don't even hate Curry, but there's just levels to this game. And to me, Steph, he's not that guy. But anyway, I also want to talk about a little bit, and we won't have to, maybe this is a conversation for another day in terms of actually getting into it, but in terms of the big man and the death of the big man in the NBA, although I will say, yeah.
Time out. Can I just say something about the Curry comment? Like, I was waiting for a pause in there, but holy, that is utter disrespect, man. That's crazy. Do you think you don't think he's the greatest point guard of all time?
No.
You have Magic? No. Or do you have?
Easily Magic.
Wow.
Bro, to me, okay. Magic's top 5. Steph's not even
Magic.
Top 10.
Like, Magic isn't a bad take, but saying that Curry isn't in the GOAT conversation, I think that's insane.
Wait. GOAT. Wait. Specify GOAT point guard or GOAT period?
No, I'm saying he's in the GOAT period conversation. I don't think he is the GOAT.
Whoa.
Like, I think you can make a case. That he's in the top 10.
Top 10 isn't GOAT conversation.
Yeah, it is, because you're.
No, it's not.
Are you saying GOAT conversation as in like the? What do you?
As in number 1?
Yeah. But like, obviously, like Kobe's in the GOAT conversation. He doesn't.
No, he's not.
You don't think he is? You think it's just strictly LeBron Jordan?
I think it's barely LeBron Jordan, but I think if you're gonna actually have the conversation, it's LeBron, Jordan, maybe you throw in Kareem. I think GOAT conversation, I think there's levels. Even to a top 10, I think there's levels to a top 10. There's like people like to do it as like a inner circle and then the inner circle, whatever. They're trying to do like a visual representation. Every person in my top 10 is not a GOAT like contender. Like for like Shaq, for example, is not. I don't think he's a GOAT contender. He may be best in his position, and that's another conversation. But he's not a GOAT contender. Like even in my top 5, Magic's not a GOAT contender, Bird's not a GOAT contender, but they're both top 5 for me. Like I think there's levels to that conversation, and I think Curry is not even near the conversation. Like to be in the conversation, you have to have a realistic argument for them to be the GOAT. It's not just like, oh, he's in the atmosphere of these great players. It's like, can you argue realistically that Curry is the GOAT over these people in the conversation? And there's no argument for me in that sense. There's literally none.
Okay. Fair. I mean, he did beat LeBron in head-to-heads, but you know,
LeBron's not the GOAT. LeBron's not the GOAT. He did it off of Iguodala and KD's back. So really, he's not the GOAT. He didn't get a Finals MVP until 2021 or whatever year that was. Like,
yeah, but that's like the same thing as like the Iguodala Finals MVP. Like,
hey, but Curry, if you're that guy, make it undeniable that you're the Finals MVP. The fact that Iguodala can even take that, it shows you weren't that guy. Either way, if you're not gonna have LeBron as the GOAT, and I don't, because of like say the Dallas series, strictly off of being the face of losing a 3-1 lead, you cannot be the GOAT. It's like, you literally cannot be the GOAT. That alone, if people are going to discredit LeBron off the Mavericks, which I do, and that's part of why LeBron can never be the GOAT for me. Curry losing 3-1 to the guy I don't even have as the GOAT, you can't even sniff the conversation. You can't, like, he's struggling to hit top 10 for me. So GOAT is like a far cry. That 3-1 is crazy.
Interesting. Okay. We
can have this whole debate if you want to another time.
I think we're closer. I think we're closer in this debate than I originally thought we were. Like I agree with a lot of the points you're saying, but still think the Curry hate is a little bit unwarranted. But that's
it sounds like hate, but I'm just speaking facts. It sounds like hate, but if you really because other than what I'm saying, he's had an amazing career, of course. But if we actually want to break down the nitty gritty of the top, then it's going to sound like hate because he's not the top. If that makes sense.
For sure. Okay, cool. Well, on that note, you were going to say something about the big men.
Yeah. This is a quick one. This maybe is another conversation for another day too, but I feel like we just want to talk about the death of the big man in the NBA, although I'd say the best players are still maybe some of the big men because there's so little competition down low. But seeing like Şengün is supposed to be this up and coming big man, freaking airballing post fades over Draymond Green, who's like 6'7". Like I know he's supposed to be a defensive player of the year, former defensive player of the year, and all that, but like come on, bro, what's going on? We need more like actual dominant big men in this league because that really showed the levels. Like I'm not trying to be some kind of boomer that said basketball back in the day was better, but I do miss like having those levels to the game. Like Şengün, if you're really a dominant big man, you should be going crazy on this Warriors team. But that's that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Yeah, it is crazy to see how the 6'7" center can dominate. Props to him, I guess. But yeah, I also did expect a little bit more from Şengün. He shows out in the regular season. Maybe it's just an experience thing, but for sure, time will tell. You know, they took the Warriors to 7 games, so you know, at very least I do give them that credit. But anyways, moving on to the Eastern Conference, we have the Cavs and the Heat. We both had the Cavs winning, and Cavs actually swept the Heat. You know, any comments on that?
Nothing there. Pretty standard, pretty expected. I don't remember if I even had the Heat making it out of the play-in. So to me, it was never a conversation about this first round.
Yeah, I think you may have had the Hawks in there.
Yeah, which that was blasphemous too. But you know, either way, I thought the Cavs would sweep whoever came out.
For sure. Interesting. Cool. All right, now Pacers Bucks. It's interesting because I had previously said this has kind of been a little bit of a rivalry brewing. I think this series continues to prove that. We saw at the end of Game 5, Pacers took it in 5 games. At the end of Game 5, Giannis had a confrontation with Tyrese Halliburton's father on the court, which became its own conversation on whether or not fans, especially or even if they are like family members of players, like if they should even be allowed on the court post game, which I thought was interesting. But saw that there was some frustration brewing and clearly some personal comments being made after that matchup. And I think the elephant in the room is now Giannis's future in Milwaukee, now that they have failed to really make any real playoff noise since 2021. So just a lot really going on in that series. Any comments or thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, I think we both had the Bucks coming out of that series. I think we were hoping for a healthy Dame and and seeing like a historic maybe series from Giannis. And to be fair, Giannis was still balling. Like Giannis is Giannis. He's always going to be Giannis. And I think his game has learned to translate to the playoffs. But there's only so much you can do when your team kind of falls apart in that way. And honestly, I don't even know if we can call Pacers Bucks a real rivalry anymore. Like I know we're just saying it's starting to become a rivalry, but the Pacers are just whooping them. Like every time they really meet up, the Pacers are just cooking them. So like I feel like maybe because of the narratives that are coming around it makes it feel like it's a rivalry, but the actual results, especially if you're gonna basically gentlemen sweep them, then you're kind of making it look not that competitive. I think the timing of the window, because the Pacers are ascending as this Bucks window has like rapidly started to close. So I think the timing is kind of unfortunate for the Bucks for this to be a proper back and forth. And I think Dame now is out. I don't know if you know exactly how long. Maybe almost all of next year or something. Like something crazy.
I mean, when it's your Achilles, man, you really got to start being real about yourself. And Dame has been in the league for about 12, 13 years. So he's done his time, but I really hope this isn't the end. Wishing him a speedy recovery for sure.
And Dame's turning 35 in July, I think, which is like, it's rough. It's rough. Because Clay, I think, is 35, about there as well. But he had the back-to-back ACL Achilles, which is crazy. That was when he was what, like 30, probably 30 or 29. Like, even then, your body can still put in that work. And Clay's recovery was amazing in itself, but that's 5 years ago at this point. Like Dame getting that now in his career is, I don't know. Like you said, I would hate to see him retire off of this, but realistically, we're looking at him coming back probably when he's 36, turning 36 soon. Then I know players are playing later and later, but then people are not always exactly 100% themselves coming off of that. So do you want to see a diminished Dame playing into his late 30s? I don't know. It's kind of tough. But as for the Bucks and Giannis, I love that Giannis has been loyal all this time. I know people like to, if he just does decide to leave, they're gonna be, oh, this guy, he's leaving the franchise. But I think because he's giving them a title, you can't really ask him for much more. I'd love to see Giannis go somewhere else, because he's really given this organization a lot. And to be fair, they gave him a lot too. They helped develop him from when he was a scrawny rookie. But the small market, you got your championship. Let him go win some rings with another superstar somewhere else. So I would love to see him get out of Milwaukee.
Yeah, I agree. Come home to New York, baby. Come home. We will accept you with open arms. I didn't check Giannis's contract, and I believe he has a player option in about 2 years. So this means that, well, one, I don't think the Knicks have the best trade package. My hope for this is that Milwaukee finds the best possible trade package, sends him to somewhere that ultimately does not work out for Giannis, and hopefully he looks at New York as a destination in free agency. And I know that can sound like delusion, but there are reports saying that he does have business ventures in Brooklyn. So,
ooh, okay.
You're already making money. You're already making money here, man. Come on. The Garden will love you. New York would love Giannis, man.
Yeah.
New York would literally love Giannis, accept him with open arms. ain't getting that Julius Randle hot and cold treatment. He will be. He's. If we love Brunson the way we love Brunson now, only imagine how much of a legend Giannis will be in this city, man. And so New York loves its icons. Giannis, hope to see him in a Knick uniform in the near future. And it's funny we talked about this. We didn't really talk about the Pacers. I guess we'll talk about them briefly when we discuss this Cavs-Pacers series that is coming up. But last two series in the Eastern Conference, we have the Knicks and the Pistons first. Man, my New York Knicks, man. I expected this series to go to 5 and went to 6. I'm not mad at it. It was really a dogfight. Seeing the way the Pistons were just playing very physical defense and really were balling. Cade Cunningham had his kind of coming out party, and he really did show out. So it was nice to see him hooping. But in the end, looks like clutch player of the year, man. Jalen Brunson was the star of the show. He had that crazy game winner in game 6, which I thought was wild. Love seeing a clutch moment like that. I think we're going to be watching that clip or seeing that clip a lot in the future. So props to the Knicks, man. I'm not mad at them. I expected to be angrier with them at this point already, but I'm not mad at them just yet. So looks like they advanced. They have the Celtics next series, so very interesting times indeed. So any thoughts on that series?
Yeah, not much. We kind of joked around saying I thought the Pistons would win, but realistically, I always thought the Knicks would win. And happy for you. And I'm curious to see exactly how far they go. I didn't have them beating the Celtics. I know we'll talk about that, but this team, there's something about them. There's a lot of energy. I think having that New York fan base. I think because the Knicks have been so sorry for so long that people forget just how rabid that Knicks fan base can be, even though they were always there. I think when people talk about like these massive fan bases that really, or like people say the 12th man in football, or whatever, like that, people don't think of the Knicks that way. I think in recent times because the team has just been so bad over the last however many years, but even the playoffs in the previous couple years, you've seen that Knicks fan base show out. And now that they're actually going to be in a series like the one with Boston, I think seeing that Knicks fan base up against, let's say, that Boston fan base where people gas all the time, which it is. Boston does have their rabid, questionable in some ways as well fan base, but I think that Knicks fan base is really going to show out. So I'm excited to see that.
100%. It's Boston, man. So they have reason to. But yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. But lastly, Boston Magic. I mean, I don't really have much to say there. Celtics are a very deep team, and I expected them to sweep the Magic, but they did it in 5 games. So no shame in that at all. So yeah, any thoughts on that?
Nothing. Celtics are boring, man. Next.
Okay, cool. All right. Now let's jump into the predictions for the second round. We've gone through all the first round matchups. Now we'll go through the 4 matchups that are set for the second round. First being the Thunder and Nuggets. Who do you have? How many games?
Okay. This one, I picked against the Thunder before, and that I recognize was blasphemous. Obviously, they completely dominated the Grizzlies like we just talked about. But I just like the Nuggets, I like the Nuggets in general. Obviously, they just take out the Clippers. I don't like them that much. But I like Jokic as a player. I like Aaron Gordon as a player. Murray is fun in his own ways, But I got to go with the Thunder. I think if the Grizzlies had pushed them a little further, then I think it'd be more interesting. But coming off a 7-game series for the Nuggets and the Thunder having all that rest after a sweep, already off of being by far the best team in the West over the course of a season, I just think this year that's gonna take them a little bit further. So I'm going with the Thunder on this one.
How many games?
Ooh. I'm gonna say 6 though. I don't think it's gonna be as comfortable as people think.
Yeah. Okay. I also have the Thunder in 6. I think Nuggets having the best player in Jokic is gonna do a lot for them. I think he'll keep it somewhat close. Jokic has really been putting in a shift, man. He is really. You have seen how frustrated he can get with his team. It really gives shades of LeBron carrying the Cavs teams or the other teams that he's played on, where really the player with the highest IQ, with the most talent, and you could see the frustration on the court. So I think that will definitely do something for the team. But the Thunder's just too deep, man. They're just incredibly deep. They have SGA, they have Jalen Williams, who's back. They have Luke Dort, who's one of the best defensive players in the league. You have Caruso, you have Chet Holmgren, you have Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, you really do have just lots of key pieces all around. And I honestly think this team is good enough to win the whole thing. So I also had the Thunder in 6. And yeah, I expect big performances from SGA, but I really want to see a player like Jalen Williams. I know he was an all-star this season, but I really want to see him kind of catch fire and do his thing in this series as well. So we'll see if that happens. I think he has, I think he can do it. I don't think the Thunder has enough. I don't think the Nuggets have enough defensive presence on the perimeter to keep a player like Jalen Williams cold. So we'll see what happens with that. And I'm just excited for this team, man, because I think they've been very patient. They've lost a lot. They've had the experience, and I think, like I said before the last series, this is the season where they take that extra step and really make a case or make a chase for that title. So we shall see what happens there. But cool, man. Next series we have Timberwolves Warriors, man. We have the 6 seed facing off against the 7 seed. Who do you have? How many games?
Ant-Man, it's your time. It is your time. Just because of that little rant I had for Curry, maybe like 10 minutes ago, however long ago that was, I need Ant-Man to put this guy out of his misery, although I'm sure that's not going to be the actual matchup. I'm sure it's going to be like with Butler or something, but or maybe even Draymond. The dude's basically a guard height. But yeah, I see the Wolves winning the series. I think once again, Gobert, as much as people hate on him, I know he has his own detractors in the league because he is truly a one-way player. in most instances, he has his moments like that, like toward the end of the Wolves series, but generally he's really one way and defensive. But I think, as we saw at the end of the Lakers series, if you really don't have anyone that can match up with him, then why not get free buckets? Why not? And I think the Warriors, similarly to the Lakers, don't have enough presence down low to stop Gobert. And if they put enough resources into trying to stop that, and I'm saying this like Gobert is some crazy offensive talent, and he's not. But if they're forced to put in the resources to try to slow that down, then Ant is just gonna go crazy. And I can see a really great series from Ant here. So I'm going Wolves in 6.
Interesting. Okay. I think on paper, I think Knicks and Celtics may be the most interesting one on paper, right? But when you look at the personalities that are in this series, I think this is going to be, has the potential at least, to be the most entertaining series of potentially this entire playoffs, because you have big personalities in Anthony Edwards. Dante DiVincenzo does not shy away from confrontation. We've seen him get into fights in the past. And Rudy Gobert, even though he is not the one to really, I would say, throw the first punch, or I guess shove in the case of the NBA, he also does not stay away from the drama. You have Julius Randle, who is usually can keep a calm head, but I've seen him as a former Knick in high emotional moments loses cool a little bit. And this is just on the Timberwolves side. We haven't even brought up Draymond Green. We have not brought up Jimmy Butler. I think Buddy Hield can also get up in that mix. And listen, this has the potential. I really want to see who they put on Ant. I expect Jimmy Butler to be placed on Ant. But it is also weird because you have brought up the whole big man mismatch on both sides. So I think that really the Warriors will really be tested with their lack of size in this series. But I have them going over and winning in 6 games. I expect a legendary performance from Curry, and I really do want to see Jimmy Butler do have those playoff Jimmy moments. We saw him have a few or a huge, I guess you could say, injury scare in the previous series, and he did come back. And I just want to see him lock Ant down. I just really want to see him do the work. So I think the playoffs are entertaining when you have Jimmy go in the distance. So I have the Warriors winning it in 6 games. So we shall see what happens there. Cool. All right. Next series, Cavs Pacers. What are your thoughts?
This one's interesting. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I feel like I want to say Cavs just because they were so good this season, but they did kind of come out of nowhere this season with exactly how good they've been. But the Pacers, they've been putting in the reps these last few years, and like we talked about with like these Bucks, like this budding Bucks rivalry and stuff like that. They really, I know the Cavs were a higher seed than them last year as well. I feel like the Pacers have been tested a bit more. Like the Cavs matchup, and to be fair, they earned that seed, so you earned the easy matchup. But I think going through Giannis last year, like I said, I think the Cavs had like the magic last year, I think, in the first round, and then they got bounced by the Celtics. So I don't know. I just like the Pacers and how much they've been through over the last few years, and the emergence of Halliburton. Halliburton's so interesting to me as I guess a star at this point in the league because he really burst onto the scene. I guess you could say him and Brunson are probably the most unexpected stars out of the last few years. But even Brunson, he had like that series with the Mavericks, and then the Knicks went and pounced on that, and then he had to really show how great he is. But Halliburton just like really just developed and came out of nowhere with the Pacers. Maybe I haven't been as tapped in with the NBA, so maybe that was expected from hardcores. But for me, like he really just burst onto the scene and really started to cement himself as a big player in the league. And going head to head with Giannis and taking him out back-to-back years is nothing to laugh at. So this one may be an upset, but I'm thinking Pacers in 7.
Interesting. I hear you, man. I think the Pacers really do have competitive players, Nemhard and Neesmith. Then they have clear stars in Halliburton and Siakam, who has made the jump over to Indiana. Who knows? But I think the Cavs are just too deep, man. The same way I talked about the Thunder, I think the Cavs have that in them too. They had Evan Mobley, who was an all-star this season, and then you obviously have Donovan Mitchell as well, and you have a great 5 in Allen. So I don't know. I just think they have too much firepower to fall to a team like the Pacers. I really do think if the Cavs fall to the Pacers, I would consider this a failure in their season, considering you got the first seed. Or the number 1 seed, I guess you could say. And, I just don't want to see them fall to a team like the Pacers. As a Knicks fan, I would prefer to have the Pacers in the next round. But from the basketball perspective, I think the Cavs are just too deep and they have just better players overall. But cool.
Fair.
Cool. Lastly, we have the Knicks versus the Celtics, and I think we've been dreading, as a Knicks fan, I've been dreading this series for some months now. As soon as we locked down that 3 seed and looked like we were going to have that 3 seed for some time there, I saw that, the Celtics were going to be in our path. Full transparency, I know we talked about whether or not we were going to say it, but full transparency, we are recording this shortly after game one. Knicks won 108-105. But this is a very interesting series. Boston has the home court. What do you think will happen?
No. I think you should actually go first on this.
I think it's, it hurts to say. I think it's going to be Celtics in 6. But I will say, the Knicks, and I've said this in the past about the Celtics. They are a great team, but in clutch time, they can sometimes be a little bit questionable. I would trust the ball in Tatum's hands or Brown's hands. They've made it the whole way. They've won a ring. They have the experience to back it up, but I don't think they have the best clutch player on the floor. I think that's going to be Jalen Brunson. I don't think that's bias. I really do believe that Brunson is the most clutch player on the floor. I don't think he's the best player. I think Tatum is the best player on the floor. I know you may disagree with that, but I just think, well, on paper, you have two teams who are deep. You have two teams who have very strong starting lineups. The Celtics are better offensively and defensively. They have great defenders in Holiday and Derek White and Tatum and Brown. And, it's just going to be very hard for the Knicks to score, given that the Celtics have great perimeter defense. But I think if you can keep a close game, keep every game close, you give yourself a chance to go over because you have the best clutch player on the floor. I really do want to see how we show up, especially given that we're outsized as well. We have Josh Hart at the 4, and so we'll see how he matches up. I don't know if they'll put him on Porzingis. I don't know or if they'll throw him to somebody else. We'll see what the switch offs look like. But listen, I think the Knicks are talented enough to make this a competitive series. I want every game to be close, but I just think at the end of the day, the Celtics do have better basketball on both sides of the floor, and I think they'll win it in 6 games. But a game 1 victory, man, that does make me happy. That does make me happy, and I expect. Oh, last thing I will say, expect Brunson to show out, but Karl Anthony Towns, man, he is the one that I think has gotten away from some of the criticism. We won against Detroit, so he didn't get a lot of he didn't hear a lot of the noise from the media, but this man has really put up, like, I would say, in my opinion, very disappointing stats over the last few games. In these playoffs, he's game by game, he scored 23 in game 1, then scored 10 points in game 2, followed by 31, 27, 17, 10, and 14. This is the highest paid player on our roster. This is the player that we made the big trade for in the offseason. I expect more than 4 to 14 points. 17 points, still not enough. I think you have the upper hand in that matchup against Al Horford. I think you pull Al Horford out to the 3 and you can really do some damage on that side. If you want to shoot the 3 ball, if you want to slash into the paint, I think Cat should have a lot of control in this series, but clearly he hasn't been showing up. So I think that's going to be a big factor that determines how competitive the Knicks can make this series.
Fair. I think that's a great breakdown. But I think I might want to be one of those people you were talking about at the beginning when I say New York Knicks, magic tricks, eat Chex Mix, Celtics in 5. Celtics in 5. Honestly, I would have said that, but because you guys got game 1, I agree. I'll push it to 6. I think stealing a game in Boston is actually massive. So I'll push it to 6 games. And I think Yeah, they'll probably still get one at home, and Boston will probably take another at home, another in New York, to make it 6. So, but fair play, fair play. I think even getting that game 1 win in Boston is gonna be massive for momentum. So, you take those.
Absolutely. New York. Let's go. I'm excited, man. I'm so excited.
There you go.
Cool. All right. Well, those are the second round matchups. Alexi, do you want to introduce the final topic of the episode?
Man, I guess we got the Prem, bro. We got the Prem. We got only, I believe, 3 games remaining? Dre, is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
I believe 3 games remaining, and we've got a crazy top 5 race. Liverpool has already won the league. We already acknowledged that previously. But everything else is pretty much up for grabs. So these final few games are going to be very critical. Yeah. So I'm curious because, Dre, I know you've been following it closer than I have. I've really been following Man U, what's been going on with them. So you want to share your thoughts on what you've witnessed, Chelsea especially, doing their thing?
Yeah. I kind of get into a breakdown of this top 5 race because it's kind of wild, and I think this has really been the only thing left to play for in the Prem this season because of how non-competitive the title race has been, and then non-competitive the relegation battle has been. And we talked about this a bit last week when we were talking about Liverpool winning the title. But from 2nd all the way to 7th, there's a 7-point gap, which 7 points is kind of sounds like a lot with 3 games to play, but I think most people are pretty confident that Arsenal are going to get 2nd. But the reason why I even bring them into it is because despite the season Man City have had, and people will say Man City have had one of their worst seasons in a long time. They went like 10 or 11 games without a win. It was crazy. Despite all of that, Man City are on 64 points and Arsenal are on 67 points. And of course, Arsenal's had a disappointing season in their own right and to make some noise in the Champions League. But the fact that Man City that is not outside of the realm of possibility that Man City can finish above Arsenal to end the season is crazy to me. So even from that front, 2nd place, as comfortable as people thought Arsenal were, that isn't wrapped up. Man City have won 4 games in a row coming into where we are right now, which is nothing to laugh at. So that's heating up in itself. But then if you look below Man City, who are on 64, like I said, Newcastle are right there on 63. Chelsea, who actually beat the champions Liverpool over the weekend 3-1, are on 63. So even right there from 3rd to 5th, any one of those games can really be like those are anyone's games coming up soon. And Chelsea are actually playing Newcastle on the weekend, so that might be a deciding game right there. And Chelsea are actually facing the team behind them, Nottingham Forest, I think as the final game of the season, who are on 61 points. So coming to the last 3 games, Chelsea, first of all, have got the worst run. They had the most unlucky run to end the season out of all these teams. But in a sense, you could also say because they're facing direct rivals, they had the opportunity to take points off them, which is, obviously great if we win, but tough. But yeah, Chelsea are facing Newcastle, who are right ahead of them, and Forest, who are right behind them, heading into the last 3 weeks. And Villa, who were 7th, are on 60. So really, this is basically anyone's top 5 to end the season. And this is a shame, I would say, for Nottingham Forest, because I think when we talked about them, we actually did a top 5, top 6 prediction back in like January after the transfer window. And Forest was 2nd, I think, at the time, and at least 2nd or 3rd. And people were pretty excited about them. I've heard a lot of discussion about how Forest might be comfortably getting Champions League this year. A lot of people have just said it kind of dismissively, like, oh, people might want to go to Forest because they're playing Champions League next season and all these kind of things. And if we're talking about form, they've lost 3 out of the last 5 games, and they just drew today to Crystal Palace. So Forest are letting Champions League slip through their fingers, and now it's not getting. They'll probably have to beat Chelsea on the last day of the season to even have a chance to get back in. So that's a lot of waffle to say that this top 5 race has been very exciting. Like, I guess the opposite of Forest would be Chelsea. A lot of people thought Chelsea were out of it based on our form in this back half of the season. But our last 5 games, 2 draws, and then the last 3 wins. So Chelsea are putting together a bit of form to end the season. It's heating up. It's heating up a lot. And I think the teams that do end up making it is going to make a big difference when we want to talk about the transfer window, because a lot of these teams are going in for the same players, like a Liam Delap, for example, especially in that striker market. I know a lot of these teams like Forest, Chelsea have been very interested, maybe even an Arsenal or Liverpool, in getting a striker in. And if for the teams that do make it to the Champions League, that's a big selling point in terms of attracting players. So I'm very curious to see how this one plays out and to see how our predictions played out from earlier in the season. But I'm curious if either of you, I know you guys might not have been following it super closely, but if either of you, based on maybe some of the stuff we talked about earlier in the season or just recent form of some of these teams, anything that stands out to you guys?
Yeah, I think the one thing that's really stood out to me is Nottingham Forest. Like you said, early in the season, they were pretty high up there, like second, third place. And it would be really sick to see them stay within top 5. And if they could somehow make Champions League, I just think, hey, you know what? And any change is good change from the norm of, like, you know, the big 6 clubs. You know, seeing Newcastle there is also a positive. My only hope with the remaining matches is, you know, a bit more of a City downfall. You know, I want to see him suffer a little more, make Pep shed the few hairs he has left, you know, and see them demoralized. You know, they're losing De Bruyne. There's going to be a lot of change coming.
And it's funny you say that too, because I know you're like you just pretty much laid out there, you're a bit of a City hater, but this run of form from City has come during Haaland's absence, which is interesting. You know, he's been injured for a while now, and seeing start more games, and it seems like something's clicking. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm sure, you know, you'd always love to have Haaland in your team just because of the goal threat he is, but something tactically has started to click for City. I don't watch all City games. I couldn't be the one to tell you exactly why they're playing much better now, but I think that's an interesting thing to even look at going into next season as well, for City, seeing, okay, maybe they have a little more tactical flexibility having a Marmouche there who can start games and give Haaland a rest. I know Haaland's injured now, but even it would be massive, so he doesn't have a chance to even pick up all these injuries, which he obviously has right now for such an extended period of time. And they're going to want him to be healthy with that 10-year contract.
I was about to say, bro, this 10-year contract and how they're performing, it's going to be an interesting future, especially, again, with Pep's future as well, and how Haaland could potentially play down the road with different tactics.
Exactly. And I think, too, seeing Aston Villa get bounced from the Champions League, they were kind of out of it for this top 5 race for a lot of the season. And now that they're out of the Champions League, they put together a bit of form, too. They've got 4 wins in their last 5. So they're very sneaky to get in there. Obviously, they're one of the better teams in the league to even gotten as far in the Champions League as they did. We saw the same thing last year with Newcastle, who got in the Champions League, and then in the league, their form just dropped. And then this year, Aston Villa got in the Champions League. They kind of took over Newcastle's spot from the year before, but now in the league, their form dropped. So I think whatever team, I think Arsenal, City, obviously Liverpool, they'll be fine. I think out of these 4 to 7 in Newcastle, Chelsea, Forest, Villa, maybe not Chelsea, and I'm going to sound biased maybe, but just because Chelsea has such a crazy large squad, which is a problem in itself, but I think they actually have the depth to maybe compete on both fronts, although it's going to be completely different from this Conference League nonsense that's going on this year, where our B team is basically blowing out teams in that competition. But I think the depth will be very helpful. But I think for the rest of those teams, even if you do get Champions League this year, next year, now you're looking at how do we maintain being a competitive team on both fronts. And I think especially for a club like Forest, who pretty much came out of nowhere, like you said, to be this good. I think even finishing in the top 8 would be great for them. I think if Forest can get to like the Europa League or the Conference League, that would be very interesting for them. I think the Champions League, I know people are excited for them to get that, and I think obviously financially that's great for your club. But in terms of actually competing on both fronts, that could be low-key a blessing and a curse. So I think maybe for them, going to the Europa League or something like that, might actually be better for them in the long run. But I know Forest fans won't want to hear that. Of course, they're going to want Champions League nights.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. You know, it's a bit of a United mentality where everyone wants Champions League next season, even though, let's be real, are we really winning that? Probably not.
Yeah. And then, is it worth it to just say you're in the competition if it means you're going to suffer in the league next year? Because United need a big league performance next year.
Yeah, the only real appeal of it does appear to be the financial side of like whatever deals they have with sponsors and, you know, just people being able to go to those games. But
for sure.
Yeah, I think overall this has been an exciting change for the Prem, and it'll be interesting how these last few weeks unfold. Eric, do you have any thoughts on these? Have you caught any of the recent games?
Yeah, well, what I was gonna say was that it's interesting because I remember blindly really rooting for Nottingham Forest towards like the beginning of not the beginning of the season, but you know, like saying they obviously are still within striking distance of Man City. I don't know. I think it's when you look at the table, to me it's just interesting to see how many levels, or not many levels, but you know how far ahead Liverpool really is of Arsenal being in the number 2 position, you know. So I just think that the whole concept of, I understand that like the top 5 make it into the Champions League, but this whole concept of like, man, I really want my club to make it into the top 5 has always been interesting to me. I get the appeal of like wanting to see your club in the Champions League because it's the most competitive tournament in all of Europe and in the entire world, to be honest with you. But it's funny to me.
No, that's actually a great point. I think in most seasons you hope for more of a title race, and then like, okay, top 4 is kind of like the consolation prize, but really you're rooting for your team to win the title. But this year, because it's so not competitive, the best most of these teams are hoping for is it used to be top 4, now top 5, which is, I guess in its own way is kind of pathetic to even have that be your goal. But I think for some teams it's really realistic that, like, say for example just Chelsea, there's a real chance if we don't get Champions League football within the next 2 years, our best player Cole Palmer is going to say, you know, as much as I love having developed at this club, I got to go play in the Champions League. And if that means I have to go to another team, then see you later. And that's something we don't even want to dream of. Or I guess that we don't want that nightmare. And you can say some people have talked about similar things to Arsenal. I think now they're probably fine that they've gotten so far in the Champions League. But like Saka, Saliba, like these great players are like, okay, we love them and they love the club. But realistically, we want to compete for the best titles. And if you're not in the Champions League, you can't do that. So you would hope your team could at least secure that, and of course, like you said, go on for the title, because honestly aiming for anything other than title is kind of pathetic. But that itself is a whole interesting dynamic of soccer, which you don't really get, I guess, with a more of a regular season playoff format that a lot of other sports have.
Absolutely.
Enough waffling. There's nothing else to add there. We'll check back in on this though. I think once the season ends, only a few more weeks, I think we'll be good to do a whole wrap up on the season and check back on our predictions and all that kind of stuff. It's been an interesting season, to say the least. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You're probably mostly listening as we just have a graphic up, but thanks for listening to the podcast once again. This one, not the longest we've done, mainly the NBA segment, but a lot of interesting stuff to talk about and a lot more interesting stuff coming up as well as the playoffs continue to heat up. And tomorrow, as of recording, the Champions League is back. Barca, Inter, and then the day after that, Arsenal, PSG. Massive games, which we're definitely going to talk about next week. And we'll check back in on the second round of the playoffs when that ends too. So a lot of fun stuff coming up, and stick it out with us. Like I said last week, like I'll say next week, we're keeping it going. So like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. We'd very much appreciate it, and see you guys next week.
Thanks, yo.
Peace out, y'all. Take care.